I want to tell you something, and I need you to actually stay with me because this one, it took me a long time to be ready to say it out loud. My girlfriend cheated on me, but she didn't know that I knew. For 2 weeks, I woke up next to her. I made her coffee. I held her hand while crossing the street. I laughed at her jokes. I kissed her goodnight, and I said, absolutely nothing. Why? Why would someone do that? Why not just blow it up right there? Because I had something she didn't know I had. Time. And I was going to use every single second of it. What happened at the end of those 2 weeks? I've never told anyone the full story. Not really until now. Her name was Lena. Well, that's not her real name, but that's what I'll call her here. Lena and I met at a friend's birthday dinner. One of those big round table situations where you end up next to someone completely by accident and somehow talk for 3 hours and forget to eat. She laughed at everything I said, which I knew even then it was dangerous. We dated for a few months before it got serious. And when it got serious, it got serious. The kind of serious where you stop keeping a toothbrush at each other's places and just move one in permanently without ever actually discussing it. We got an apartment about a year in. 3rd floor, no elevator. We carried a sofa up those stairs together, taking turns being furious about it. And we laugh, cried the whole way up. It had a shelf in the kitchen that couldn't hold its own weight. It fell off the wall the first week. We put it back up. It fell off again. We just stopped putting things on the shelf. Became a running joke. 3 years later, that shelf was still empty. We got Fig about 18 months in. A rescue greyhound. Skinny. Skittish. He trembled the whole first car ride home. But within 2 weeks, he'd claimed the left side of the sofa, and he slept there like it had always been his, like he'd finally stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. I understood that dog completely. 3 years, nearly 3 years of groceries together, and shared playlists, and arguing about whose turn it was to call the landlord, and Sunday mornings that didn't need to be anything special, to feel like something worth keeping. I was happy. I want to make sure I say that clearly. I was genuinely, completely happy. And I had absolutely no idea that she wasn't. Looking back now, I can see exactly where it started, but in the moment, I told myself 100 different stories to avoid seeing what was right in front of me. It started small. The way things always start small. She started keeping her phone face down on the table. I noticed it. And I told myself she was just trying to be more present. We'd talked about that, about phones at dinner, so I decided it was a good sign. Then she started going to the gym later. 8, 9, sometimes 10 at night. She'd never been a night gym person. She used to make fun of night gym people, but she was stressed at work. That's what she said. And I believed her, because why wouldn't I? Then there was the laughing. She'd be on the phone in the other room, and I'd hear her laugh. And it was different. Not her normal laugh. Not the one I knew. Lighter. More careful. Like she was performing it for someone. I stood in the hallway once, listening, and I felt something cold move through my chest, but I walked back to the living room, sat back down, unmuted the TV, and told myself I was being insane. That went on for about 6 weeks. 6 weeks of noticing and unnoticing. 6 weeks of my gut saying one thing and my brain finding a way to say, no, you're fine, she loves you. Stop it. I want to be honest about that, because I think a lot of people do that. And we don't talk about it enough. The ways we protect ourselves. from the truth we're not ready to hold yet. It was a Tuesday, 11 p.m. I couldn't sleep. I'd been doing that a lot, lying awake, staring at the ceiling, telling myself it was just work stress. I got up to make toast. I don't know why toast. That's just what I do at 11 p.m. apparently. She was in the shower. I could hear the water running. Her phone was on the kitchen counter. I walked past it, and the screen lit up. I didn't pick it up. I didn't touch it. I just saw the preview. One line from a name I didn't recognize, and in that one line, I understood everything. My body went cold. Not metaphorically cold, actually cold. Like the temperature in the room dropped, I was holding a plate. I set it down on the counter, very carefully, like something fragile was suddenly at stake. And then I just stood there, in my kitchen, in the quiet. With the sound of the shower running in the background, my brain started doing this desperate bargaining thing. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's someone from work. Maybe you misread it. Maybe you're jumping to conclusions. You're always jumping to conclusions, but I wasn't jumping to conclusions. And somewhere underneath all that bargaining, I knew that. So I stood there, and I made a decision. Not a big decision, not a revenge plan. Nothing dramatic, just one thought. I'm not going to say anything. Not yet. Not until I know exactly what I'm dealing with. That's it. That was the whole thought. She came out of the bathroom 10 minutes later. Hair in a towel. Skin still warm from the shower. She kissed me on the cheek and asked if the toast was for her. I said yeah. She said thanks. We watched TV for an hour. She fell asleep before me. And I lay there, in the dark, next to her, listening to her breathe, completely still, thinking, I know something. You don't know? I know. The first 3 days were the hardest. People talk about betrayal like it's one feeling, like it's just anger, or sadness, or shock. But it's not one feeling. It's all of them, at once, on shuffle. On day one, I was mostly numb. I went to work. I sat in meetings. I nodded at the right times. I ate lunch. I came home, and I watched her move around our apartment, making dinner, asking about my day, and completely normal. And I thought, how are you doing this? How are you just standing there, making pasta, like none of this is happening? On day two, the anger arrived, not at her, not yet, at myself, for not seeing it. For all those moments I noticed something was off and talked myself out of it, for being so determined to trust her, that I stopped trusting myself. I went for a walk that evening, an hour, maybe more, just walking, earphones in, nothing playing, just me and the sound of my own footsteps, and the question I kept coming back to, how long? Day 3 was when the forgetting started. And that was the cruelest part. You'd think the forgetting would be a relief. It's not, because you forget for half a second, and everything feels normal. And then it comes back. And the drop is worse than if you'd never forgotten at all. I was making coffee that morning. She said something funny from the other room, and I laughed. A real laugh. Automatic, and then 2 seconds later. Oh, right. That's the part nobody tells you about. The ambushes. The way grief doesn't wait for a good time. On day 4, I called Marcus. Marcus has been my best friend since we were 19 years old. He's the kind of person who doesn't say much, but when he does, it means something. I parked outside a supermarket, engine running, didn't go in, just sat in the car park, in the dark, and called him. He picked up on the second ring. I said, I need to tell you something. He said, okay, just that. Okay. And I told him everything. The phone, the preview, the name I didn't recognize, the 6 weeks of small things that suddenly all made sense. He was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then he said, "What do you want to do?" Not, "What should you do?" Not, "Here's what I think." What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know yet." He said, "Okay, my sofa's there whenever you need it." That was it. That was the whole conversation. No advice, no anger on my behalf, no big speech about what I deserved. Just a sofa. I sat in that car park for another 20 minutes after we hung up, and for the first time in 4 days, I felt slightly less alone. So, the 14 days. I want to try to explain what that was actually like, because I think people imagine it as this calculated, tactical thing, like I had some master plan, like I was playing chess. It wasn't like that. It was more like surviving. One morning at a time, every day I woke up, and she'd already made coffee. She always made the coffee, and that was her thing. She'd hand me the mug, and I'd say thank you. And she'd ask if I slept okay, and I'd say, yeah, mostly. And that exchange, that tiny, ordinary nothing exchange, was the hardest part of every single day. Because it was real. That part was real. She wasn't performing that. She genuinely cared if I slept okay, and I couldn't figure out how both things were true at the same time. I spent a lot of those 14 days just thinking about what love actually is, about how well you can really know someone, about all the versions of a person that exist simultaneously, and how you only ever get to see some of them. I'm not saying I forgave her. I'm not saying I understood. I'm saying I sat with the questions instead of just burning everything down immediately. And that sitting changed something in me. Practically speaking, I was also getting things in order, quietly, without drama. I moved my important documents to my office. I made a list of what was mine and what was ours, and thought carefully about both. I sorted out the finances and figured out what the apartment situation would look like. Checked what was on my name alone. I called my landlord about a sublet, told him I was thinking about my options, which was the most honest thing I said to anyone that week. And then there was Fig. I spent 2 full evenings just sitting on the floor with him, one hand on his back, feeling him breathe. He's a greyhound. They're not cuddly dogs usually, but Fig had always been different with me. He'd rest his head on my knee like it was the most natural thing in the world, and I'd sit there thinking, whatever happens, however this ends, he's coming with me. That wasn't negotiable. Day 9, I've talked about this moment before, but I don't think I've ever fully described it. It was a Wednesday evening. Nothing had happened. There is no reason for it to be the hard night. We'd ordered food. We were on the sofa. One of those TV shows that neither of us fully followed, but we'd watched enough of that. We kept going. She fell asleep on my shoulder, just drifted off mid-episode. And Fig was at our feet, asleep too, doing that thing where greyhounds look like they've simply ceased to exist, and the TV was on, and the room was warm, and it was so ordinary. And I thought, I'm going to miss this. Not her specifically, not even us specifically, just this. This ordinary nothing Wednesday evening, the specific weight of someone sleeping on your shoulder, the specific sound of a dog breathing, the specific feeling of a life that fits. And I sat there, completely still, for a long time, because I knew I was holding the last of something. Eventually I got up, went to the bathroom, turned the tap on, and cried, properly, quietly, for maybe 6 or 7 minutes. Then I ran cold water on my face, looked at myself in the mirror for a second, took a breath, went back to the sofa, put her feet up on my lap, and kept watching the show. The next morning I called Marcus again. I said, "I'm ready," he said. "Okay." "When?" I said. "5 days." The night before the dinner, I took Fig to Marcus's place. I told her we were having a sleepover, a guy's night. She laughed and said, "Tell him I said hi." She said hi. To Marcus. I said I would. I drove Fig over. He sat in the passenger seat, like he always did, head up, ears slightly back, watching the road like a very thin co-pilot. I talked to him the whole drive. I do that. I talk to my dog. I'm not ashamed. I told him we were going to be okay, that wherever we ended up, we'd figure it out, that the sofa situation would be fine. Marcus had a good sofa. Fig turned and looked at me, and then looked back at the road, which is exactly the right response. I drove home without him. The apartment felt different immediately, quieter. His water bowl was still by the kitchen door. I left it there. She was in bed reading when I got back, and she asked if Marcus was doing okay. Well, I said yeah. She said, "Good." She kissed me goodnight. I lay in the dark for a long time, not thinking about anything specific, just present. Tomorrow, day 14. I made the reservation at a restaurant called Ember. We'd been there for my birthday the year before. She loved it. I wore the shirt she'd bought me. I've thought about that detail a lot since. I'm still not entirely sure why I did that. She got dressed up, put on the green dress, the one she wore on our first proper date. She looked beautiful. I want to be honest about that too. She looked at me and said, "This is nice. We should do this more." Yeah, we drove to the restaurant. She chose the music, something soft. I kept my eyes on the road. We sat down. We ordered drinks. She got the cocktail menu and read it like a novel, which she always did, which I always loved. She ordered something with elderflower. I ordered wine. And then she started talking about her week. A situation with a colleague, something that had frustrated her, and I listened. I genuinely listened. I asked a question in the right place. She laughed at one point, and I thought, this is the last conversation we'll ever have like this. I waited until she finished, until there was a natural quiet, and then, very slowly, I reached into my pocket and I put my phone on the table between us, screen up, the screenshot. She looked down at it. I watched her eyes move across the screen, and I watched the colour leave her face. She went completely still. And then that stillness shattered. The tears came, fast. Her hand came up to her mouth. She started to say something. An explanation, or the beginning of one. Her hand reached across the table toward mine. I said, "I've known for 2 weeks." Just that. She stopped, mid-sentence, mid-reach, and her face did something I've never seen a face do before, or since. Like every version of the conversation she'd prepared for, just disappeared at once. She had braced herself for my anger, for my worst, for the version of me that raises his voice and says things he can't take back, and makes the whole room feel it. She was ready for the explosion. She was not ready for the quiet. I finished my drink. I'd set the glass down, put the phone back in my pocket, left cash on the table. Enough for both of us. I stood up. I looked at her one more time. I don't know exactly what my face did in that moment, but I hope it said, "I'm not doing this because I hate you. I'm doing this because I respect myself." And I walked out. The cold air outside hit me the second the door opened. And I stood on the pavement for a moment, just breathing it. And then I walked to my car, and I drove to Marcus's place, and Fig was at the door when I got there. Tail going, ears back. Absolutely no idea what had just happened. I sat on the floor with him for about an hour. That night, she texted me 17 times. I read every single one. I didn't reply to any of them. The weeks after were strange, not dramatic, just strange. I stayed at Marcus's for 2 weeks. He never made me feel like a burden. He just made extra coffee in the mornings and occasionally sat with me in silence, which is sometimes the exact right thing. I found a new place about a month later. Small. Top floor. No shelf problems. Fig approved immediately. He found his corner within about 4 minutes of arriving, and that was that. She tried to reach me a few times in the first month. A long message, a voicemail once. I listened to the voicemail. Once. I didn't reply. Not because I was trying to punish her, not because I had nothing to say, but because I realized that anything I said at that point was for her. And I was done doing things for her. I've thought about those 14 days more than I can count. And here's the thing I keep landing on. I didn't do it to be clever. I didn't do it to get revenge. I didn't do it to win. I did it because in that moment in the kitchen, with the plate in my hand, something in me just refused. Refused to give her my worst night. Refused to hand over that version of me. Refused to let the way it ended be defined by the worst I'm capable of. And I think that refusal was the most important thing I've ever done in a relationship. Not the 14 days, not the dinner, just that one quiet decision in the kitchen to stay in control of my own story. I'm not saying this is what anyone else should do. I'm not prescribing anything here. Every situation is different. Every person is different. Sometimes you need to explode. Sometimes the explosion is the truth. But for me, in that kitchen, on that Nothing Tuesday night, the silence was mine, and I kept it. The most powerful thing you can offer someone who expects your chaos is your calm. I'm good now. I want to say that clearly, because I know some of you are wondering. I'm genuinely, completely good. Better than good, honestly. I live somewhere I like. I sleep well. I stopped having that thing where you wake up at 3 a.m. and your brain just goes. I've been writing more, seeing friends I'd maybe neglected a bit, saying yes to things I'd been putting off, normal rebuilding stuff, the unseemly version of getting your life back. And Fig. Fig is doing absolutely phenomenally. He has a new corner in the new apartment. He has a window he likes. He's learned that the couple downstairs have a dog, and he waits by the door every morning, hoping to see her. Her name is Biscuit, apparently. Fig has better dating prospects than I did. Good for him. If you're in the middle of something like this right now, I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I'll say this. You don't have to react the second you find out. You're allowed to take a breath. You're allowed to grieve before the explosion. You're allowed to choose how your own story ends. Nobody can take that from you. Your pain is yours. Protect it. Drop a comment if this hits somewhere real. I read them all. Every single one. And I'll see you in the next one.